It's bank earnings weekend today. It's Bank of America's turn to give us their profit for the second quarter. I'm with Anthony as usual. What's the story with BofA?
Well, unlike last year, they made a profit, $2.5 billion. It looks pretty good, a nice big number.
Yep.
Pretty low return on equity though of about 4%.
Right.
So overall, not looking great.
I mean, it's pretty anemic. It's not unique to them, but it's still pretty
yeah, I mean,
anemic.
they're sort of lower down the scale. Most of the others are going to get better returns than that. BofA, of course, still has a lot of mortgage issues to sort out, but even there, things are looking a bit better. I mean, they're still losing money, but they're looking better. But actually, the thing is, what they're doing well, actually, I think, is Brian Moynihan, the chief executive, has managed to actually start cranking out some of the cost cuts he first mentioned last year.
Now, he's been getting on with this in a quieter way than Jamie Dimon, say it. JP Morgan does things, right? But he has been doing stuff, and he upped his target for cost
Yeah, he's upped
cuts,
his target. The phase one was for the sort of, commercial and retail bank, and they've done about 20% of the $5 billion cost cuts they expect there.
Right.
The investment bank and some of the other corporate areas will be cutting up to $3 billion, and so that's $8 billion in total from the start last year.
$2.5 billion of profit for a quarter. $8 billion of annual cost cuts. I mean, it's a meaningful, really meaningful number.
Actually, what that will do to tangible return on equity, which is what investors, when they're looking at banks in this country, will look at. This should, based on second quarter results, if those cost cuts were in place already, it would have meant a tangible return on equity of around 10%, which is what investors these days are looking for, to know that the bank is beating its cost of capital. But on top of that, you want to see some revenue growth.
Well, right now you're not seeing that for anyone, but
no, very few. And BofA, it's hard again. The mortgage issues get in the way. That's dragging them down. But they've got a few other things that look okay. I mean, they've managed to. They said they had the lowest provision for credit losses since the beginning of 2007, which is no mean feat. Other banks are reporting similar-ish numbers, but to go back 5 years and say it's the best, it's pretty good. So actually, on that level, we're looking at a pretty decent-looking expense base there, or just on putting that aside. And then there are one or two sort of rather amusing little things that Brian Moynihan came up with. He didn't mean them to be amusing, but having looked at his bank for years after all the mergers they did from the early 90s onwards, he said for the first time in our history, we finally have one deposit platform for all of our retail clients.
And it's kind of amazing to think they haven't had that.
Exactly, yeah. So it's getting there. It's going to be slow. They've got a few other things they can eke out over the next couple of years.
But before all this, well, maybe before the crisis, certainly before all the liability issues came out, we were thinking, there's a really good platform here.
Yep.
Now, he's trying to improve the platform, in his fairly quiet way, and he seems to be doing that. But then, when can we expect to see that bearing fruit, do you think?
Well, I think we're probably looking at least another year before you see a lot more cost cuts come through. We'll say it depends on revenue, and they do have, as with a lot of other banks, they've got a lot of capital and a lot of liquidity.
And that all depends on the economy, it depends on interest rates,
Absolutely.
It depends on all
But they bought Countrywide, and they're now, well, I wouldn't say nowhere in new mortgages, but they're far, far smaller than they wanted to be, and far, far smaller than the two big rivals. So if they can boost that, if investors will let them boost that, if they're willing to do that, you can see some revenue growth there. But again, they're not exposed to international markets particularly, so they're missing out on any kind of revenue opportunities there. Although with China and Brazil slowing somewhat, maybe that's not the worst thing to have.
Okay, we'll leave it there. That's Bank of America. Cost cuts will make it mediocre, only revenue increases will make it great. We'll have more from Breaking Views tomorrow.